Hey, I'm here 2 months late to talk to you about all my favorite things of 2024. They were not necessarily released in 2024, but I read or watched or whatever them in 2024. This is my 9th year of keeping track of every single thing I read or watch or whatever. And if I continue to do it this year, I will have an entire decade of data, and I want to make a decade favorite list, although will I be able to choose one thing for each thing? Probably not. But today we're here to talk about 2024, starting with my favorite movie, which was the adaptation of Wicked. Okay, so I have loved the musical Wicked for over half of my life. I love it so much. I've seen it performed live multiple times. I've sang it in my car with my best friend for years. I have forced my husband to love it. Seeing it in theaters as like a movie made me so emotional. I did struggle with this isn't the same. This isn't like the musical. This is different. And I know that I need to like let go of some of that, So I was trying really hard. So I did love the movie, but I did struggle a little bit. So like the movie is great, but I would still say like go see the musical. There was one scene, I don't want to spoil it, but if you have seen the musical and then you saw the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And I was literally like to my husband, and he was like and we were very, very excited. It made me very happy. But like Cynthia Erivo's voice is insane. I was like watching some of her other performances as well, and her control over her voice, like how does she do that? And like the fact that she did her own stunts and was singing live while doing the stunts, she might be magical for real. So that might be witchcraft, I think, but holy shit, what a talented human being. The library wheels, I need them. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing part 2. No Good Deed is like one of my favorite songs. It makes me so emotional, and I cannot wait to see what Cynthia Erivo does with it. This movie's great, and I'm glad it exists, but I am pitching a second movie where we do Wicked with Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel, but we just pretend they're still teenagers. Like, we'll just never acknowledge that they've aged, because I want that. I want that so bad. Also, just like a pro shot of Wicked on Broadway. I want that more than anything. Please and thank you. I personally recommend seeing the musical and then seeing the movie, but like every single lyric is chosen so carefully, and the story is put together just incredibly. It is frankly iconic. My favorite TV show of the year, I picked Game Changer on Dropout. Dropout's a subscription service, kind of like Netflix, but it's way better than Netflix. It was formerly College Humor, if you ever watched them, but it's all like comedy and improv and stuff like that. Every cast member on Dropout is a comedic genius, so talented, but I am particularly fond of Zach Oyama. He gets me every single time, but I love all of them. So it's a completely chaotic game show where these comedians are just doing these incredibly crazy things and trying to figure things out. It's so funny. It's hard to explain, but they post a bunch of free content on their YouTube and TikTok, so if you're interested, you can go check that out. I also love Very Important People, Make Some Noise, like they're all fantastic. Highly, highly recommend. My favorite anime of the year is kind of cheating because it's one of my all-time favorite mangas and I've just never seen the adaptation until now, but it is Naoki Urasawa's Monster. If you like psychological thrillers, this is something you should check out. When I describe the show to you, it's gonna sound spoilery, but I promise it happens like right in the beginning, and then the rest of it's the story. It's set in Germany, and it follows a brilliant brain surgeon named Kenzo Tenma. He's faced with a dilemma when a child comes in for brain surgery. It's urgent. If he does not do it, this child will die. Right when he's about to start the surgery, a high-up politician comes in, and he also needs brain surgery or he will die. This politician helps fund the hospital he works at, so all of the higher-ups are like, stop working on the child, go work on that politician. Tenma decides, no, the child was here first. I'm going to save the child. He does not get priority for being a politician. He saves the child's life. The politician dies. He gets fired. Later, the child he saves turns out to be a serial killer, and Kenzo is faced with so many dilemmas at this point, like, I saved him. Am I responsible? Should I have saved the politician? I wrecked my life for this child and now he's killing him. Am I responsible for stopping him? And that's where the story starts. It's an older story, so it is slower paced than a lot of stories nowadays, but it's also a study in psychology, and it studies why people would become serial killers, what happened to them to make them that way. Were they born that way? Did something happen? It covers so many different things. It is a slow burn, and it builds up to this point where you're like, there's nothing that could happen that would live up to the hype that the story has built. It took me a while to process it, but then once I processed it, I was like, that's the only satisfying way for this story to end. They fucking nailed it. I'm gonna sound pretentious when I say this, but like, when you think deeply about the ending, you're like, holy shit, that is the most profound fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. Just what a fucking story, man. I think everybody should read or watch it at some point in their life. And also, the last thing I will say is I would die for Dieter. I love him more than life. I'm about to cheat massively and say 3 video games instead of 1. My favorite AAA video game of the year was Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. I know I am so late to the party. I don't know why it took me this long to play it. I love Lord of the Rings. My dog's name is Bilbo and my horse's name is Arwen. But it did, I don't know. I won't talk about the story too much, but you're a ranger named Talion, but your spirit is bonded with an elf, and you have to figure out why, and you have to fight against, you know, Sauron's growing power. So the story is good, and it's got a lot of cool lore, but the gameplay. It uses the Nemesis system from the Batman Arkham series, which I haven't actually played, and it is so fucking cool. So the orcs all around you have like a hierarchy system, and if you like kill one, like another one will rise up and take his place, and they all have different weaknesses, and you have to like gather information on them from their like subordinates. And the combat is so satisfying, and like the finishing moves are so satisfying, and just the way you move. Sometimes you have like mounts. I did so much of the side stuff and the DLC and everything after the main game was finished because it's just so fun to be in the world and move around and fight. There's also a lot of humor and like things that the orcs say, and there was so much variety. Like there was so much work put into this game, and it was clearly like a labor of love, and I'm very, very excited to play the sequel. My favorite indie game of 2024, I literally could not choose between Chants of Sennaar and Inscription. They are both unlike any game I've ever played before. Chants of Sennaar is a puzzle game based on the myth of Babel. So they're in the Tower of Babel, and they originally all had one language, but they've been punished by the gods, and now they can no longer communicate, and each section of the tower has its own language. So you're the traveler, and you enter the bottom of the tower and encounter the first language. You know none of the language, but through what the people are doing around you, you have to decipher in your notebook different words and slowly unravel the language around you. So then when you proceed to the next level of the tower, there's another language, and then you have to decipher that language, but then you also have to see what word in this language is the equivalent of in this language, and then you have to unite the people of the tower and unite them through their languages and kind of translate for them. It is insanely cool. It's not a very long game, but it was one of the most rewarding games I've ever played. I felt like an archaeologist or something. It was so cool. I know that story-wise it wouldn't really make sense for there to be a sequel, but like, can I have one anyways? Please? Moving on to Inscription, I do not want to spoil this game for you. Really, you should go in blind. The most that I can tell you is it is a deck building roguelike mixed with like escape rooms and psychological horror. So especially if you like deck building card games, give this a shot. This again is one of the most unique games I've ever played in my life. There's nothing else like it. It did multiple things that I've never seen done before. It genuinely blew my mind, but also the gameplay is just addicting, and I played for like 12 hours a day for multiple days in a row because I couldn't stop playing it. And even when you finish the game, there's still more things that you can look into, and you find yourself like Googling and like going deeper into the lore. It is insanely cool. It's hard to not spoil it, but really, really, especially if you like card games, you should play it. It's amazing. Moving on to my favorite book of the year, it is The Devil and the Dark Water by Stuart Turton, who also wrote The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which I also really liked. But this one is my favorite. Okay, so think like historical fiction, but it's Sherlock and Watson, but Watson is buff as hell. They go on a ship journey and demonic shit starts happening, but Sherlock can't solve it because he's been in prison, so buff Watson has to take over with a noblewoman and solve what is happening. Is it human? Is it demonic? 3 people are marked for death. Are they gonna die? Who's trying to kill them? Is it demons? Is it humans? It is so good. So first of all, the characters are so well written, so well rounded. They feel real. You really root for some of them. And then the setting, like, you feel like you're there. I got creeped out a lot, honestly. Like, I would be reading at 3 a.m. and go to the bathroom and be like, all right, I'm a little creeped out, but I am a chicken. It's such a tense book. You don't want to stop reading. You need to know what happens. It's hard to talk too much about mystery books without like spoiling things, but it is a top tier page turner that will stick with you. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. And I just want to give a quick shout out to my runner-up, Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. I won't talk too much about it, but it is another mystery. It is so clever. It uses the formatting of the book. Every word, everything is there for a reason, and it is so fun to like figure out who done it. Highly recommend this as well. My favorite manga of the year is probably a lot of people's favorite manga of the year, and it is Dungeon Meshi by Ryoko Kui. I will not be calling it Delicious in Dungeon because that is a stupid name. A party down in a dungeon loses one of its members, who then teleports them all to safety. They want to go back and help her, but they have no money, no weapons, no armor. So what they decide to do for food is to eat their way through the dungeon monsters to get back to their party member. I love when there's an absurd premise, but then they commit and they go hard. And that is what Dungeon Meshi does. The world building is one of the best I've ever seen in a series, honestly. And people are like, oh, haha, that's the silly, they're eating monsters. No, it's one of the most well-crafted fantasies I've read in a long time. The characters, yes, they are silly, they are funny, they make me laugh. But then their backstories are so compelling, and the way that their backstories weave with the world building and everything in this manga is connected. But also, Ryoko Kui's art is beautiful. The backgrounds, the nature. Like I said, every single part of this manga is so well thought out, including the ending. It's satisfying, it's thematically fitting. It's just a great manga. Like, every piece of it is great. I can't even pick a favorite character. Usually I'm just like, yep, that's the one, that's my favorite. I can't pick one. They're all so good. But anyways, that was my favorite things of 2024. If you have read or played or watched any of the things that I talked about and you also like them, let me know in the comments. I would love to talk about any of these things. If you've not read or watched or played, I recommend all of them. And most of all, let me know what your favorite things of 2024 were, and perhaps I will read or watch or play or whatever them. Okay, bye!